Beginner's Guide to WordPress Hosting. Hi, I'm Charles from WP DevShed. With over 800,000 downloads of different themes that we've developed for WordPress, you might imagine we get asked quite a few questions about WordPress and hosting WordPress websites. In this video, I'm going to cover many of the common questions we get about WordPress hosting. We'll cover things like the different types of hosting, how to compare hosting plans, what features to look for, what to avoid, and what to expect when you sign up for your first WordPress hosting plan. This video is targeting the first-time webmaster, so if you have more advanced questions, please hit us up in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. We have in mind to develop more hosting-related tutorial videos, so your input to that would be massively valuable. Let's get into it. Types of hosting. Okay, so there are a dizzying array of different hosting options out there. One of the very first choices you'll need to make is whether to go with Windows or Linux-based hosting. Now the interesting thing is that unlike the desktop world, the web hosting world is dominated not by Windows, but by Linux. And certainly when it comes to WordPress, I would absolutely recommend you go with a Linux-based web host. You can run WordPress on a Windows-based server, and I've done it with different client projects, but inevitably there are always some kind of configuration challenges or issues that you need to overcome. Linux, for the most part, works really well, so I would just recommend going with a Linux server. Now the next options you're going to have to decide on are whether you need a dedicated or a VPS or a shared hosting service. So a dedicated server is pretty much what it says on the box. It is a web server that is dedicated just to you and your website. No one else is sharing those resources, those are just for you. All of the storage space, all of the bandwidth, and all of the processing power is just for your website. The cost of dedicated will vary. Varies from $100, $200, $300, up to thousands of dollars. And the cost is based on the processing power of the server, the amount of bandwidth and storage space that you need. If you're watching this video, the chances are you probably don't need a dedicated server. Only if you have thousands of visitors every single month would you need to consider that. The next option, and this is likely to be much more useful for the people watching this video, is a VPS server. Now a VPS stands for Virtual Private Server. It works in much the same way as a dedicated server, in that you get really low-level access to all of the server administration tools and configuration options, but you are sharing the server with other people, so you have a part of the resources on that server. You don't have all of the processing power, you have some dedicated to you, but not all. And for that reason, VPSs are typically a bit cheaper, and they'll range from as low as $15 to $20 a month, right up to $150 a month. Sometimes even more depending on the power of the VPS server. And this is a great option for people, small and medium-sized businesses. Maybe you get several thousand people to your site every day, but you don't have a particularly process-intensive application on your website. It's a WordPress site, so that's probably going to be fine. A VPS is a great option for those people. A shared host is the option, in fact, that's going to be most useful, I think, for the people watching this video. Shared hosting is the cheapest option, and really good shared hosting starts from $5 to $10 a month. Like a VPS server, you are sharing the resources of the server you're on with everybody else. But unlike a VPS server, you don't get a dedicated amount of processing power typically, and so it's less powerful. That said, a shared hosting plan, honestly, will be absolutely fine for 99.9% of you watching this video. Most of my client sites that I do for different clients run on shared hosting plans. Many of my own sites run on shared hosting plans because honestly, they're just fine. If you're getting hundreds, even thousands of visitors a day, shared hosting plan is just going to be a-okay for you. Now, there's one other option to think about when looking at hosting plans, and that is managed hosting. Now you may have heard this come up recently. There's a whole bunch of new managed WordPress hosting options out there these days, the likes of WP Engine, Pagely, Synthesis, Flywheel. There's a number of others as well, and these guys offer what I think you would best describe as a VPS style hosting plan, but they add on services on top of that. So not only are they giving you the VPS, but they're also doing a managed installation of WordPress. Often they'll layer on services like backup and automated updates of WordPress. They might have their own caching layer on there so to make sure that your website runs really smoothly. So a managed hosting option is another good one. And managed services typically start in the $20 to $25 range plus, and they can also go up to hundreds of dollars a month. If you're a business and you have a little bit more budget and you want the peace of mind of knowing that there are WordPress experts out there looking after your site, then a managed hosting option is going to be a really good one. So in summary, think about the difference between dedicated VPS and shared hosting like this. If that is a web server and you have a dedicated plan, then you get all of the resources on that web server. If you have a VPS, then you're sharing a piece of that web server with someone else, so you have some of the resources. If you're on a shared plan, you're sharing the server with quite a few other people, and so you get a smaller amount of resource on that server. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not going to be just fine for someone running a site which even gets hundreds or thousands of visitors a month. It really comes down to how much budget you've got and what you want to do with it. My recommendation, though, in many cases is going to be just a shared hosting plan will be A-OK. Comparing hosting plans. Okay, so we've talked about the different types of hosting. If you've chosen whether you need a VPS, a dedicated or a shared hosting plan, how do you go about comparing the different options out there? There are certainly hundreds, if not thousands, of different hosting companies. So how do you compare all the offerings that they offer? Well, let's start by talking about VPS and dedicated server plans. The main sort of technical specs, if you like, the hosting companies will lead with when they advertise VPS and dedicated server plans are one, disk space or storage. This is the amount of room you have to store files on the server. You should know that WordPress itself takes about 40 megabytes of space, which is not very much at all. But of course, if you have a library of videos and images and other things, and of course you'll be adding to that over time, so you are going to need more space. Disk space though is never or very rarely one of the limiting factors, so this is probably not a big issue. Any good VPS or dedicated server plan ought to give you more than enough space. Bandwidth is the other one. Again though, bandwidth is really the limiting factor. VPS or dedicated server plans will often come with north of 500 to a terabyte of bandwidth, which is going to be more than enough, I can assure you. The limiting factor with a VPS or a dedicated server plan is much more likely to be processing power. So have a look at comparing the amount of RAM that the server comes with and the processor speed. With VPS servers, often they'll talk about the amount of RAM that you get. So a given server has so much RAM on it, and each VPS on that server will get a dedicated amount of that. So have a look at how much RAM they offer you. With a dedicated server, they will talk about the processor speed, right? Which is much like your desktop computer. You might have an i3, an i5, or an i7 in your desktop. A web server is much the same. So have a look at the processor speed as well. So that's for VPS and dedicated. With shared hosting, curiously enough, they are often advertised as having unlimited bandwidth and storage, which seems crazy because you're getting a much smaller hosting package, which is not as capable, if you like. It's not as robust as a VPS or a dedicated, but they advertise them as unlimited. It's a little bit of a misdirection in my humble opinion. The reason that they do that is that, again, bandwidth and storage are never the limiting factor. It does come down to processing power again. When you're sharing a server with hundreds of other websites, in the case of a shared hosting plan, you are much more limited by the amount of processing power that your site has access to. That said, if you are a blogger or a small business which is getting a few hundred, maybe even a couple of thousand visits a day, a shared hosting plan is going to be able to cope with that. So when it comes to shared hosting, the things that you need to look for are things like how many email accounts do they offer? Do they provide enough room for you and all the people in your business to have their own branded email account? Do they offer dedicated IP addresses? You might want a dedicated IP address if you need a security certificate for your site. A lot of the really cheap shared hosting plans don't offer dedicated IP, so that's something to be aware of. If they don't offer a dedicated IP, do they offer shared security certificates, SSL certs? That's another option to consider. What do they have in the way of backup features? right? A lot of shared hosting plans won't actually come with automated backups, though if you get a good control panel in the software, you'll be able to have an easy manual backup process, which is actually my next point about control panels. With a shared hosting plan, you'll typically get one or other of the popular control panel software packages installed on the server. cPanel seems to be the most popular these days, and it's really, really intuitive. It's my personal favorite. You can also use Plesk as well, which is another popular one. If you haven't used either of them will do. Honestly, they do much the same thing. I happen to prefer cPanel myself. Now, with those control panels, you will normally, and this is something to watch out for, you will normally get access to one of the installer packages as well. This is some software that sits on the server and makes it super easy for you to install WordPress or any other of the very popular open source content management and e-commerce platforms. You want to make sure that your shared hosting plan comes with some installer software. Fantastico or Installatron or Softaculous are the common ones. Sometimes the hosting companies will refer to this as the one-click install of WordPress, and that's a really good thing to look out for too. I mean, WordPress, honestly, is not very hard to install the old-fashioned way, but having a one-click install means that the script will take care of all of the file permissions and everything to make sure that WordPress can update automatically and all that sort of stuff, so it's worth looking for. So that's how you can compare VPS, dedicated and shared hosting plans. What to avoid, I should say. The one thing I'm going to say here is avoid at all costs the $1 hosting companies. If you spend enough time looking around for hosting plans online, you're going to come across companies offering $1 a month hosting, $12 for a year of hosting. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the answer is service is the thing that typically goes wrong. I don't think it's possible for these guys to offer a really good level of service at $1 a month. For a few extra bucks, you get a hosting company which has a really robust and dedicated customer service platform and has people available 24/7 to help you if things go wrong. And honestly, with web hosting, there is no perfect host. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when your web server goes down at some point. And when that happens, the few extra bucks you might have saved on a really, really dirt cheap $1 host is not going to seem worth it when you can't reach anyone for 2 days. So my recommendation is always to go for one of the slightly more expensive, but still pretty cheap, let's face it, $5 to $10 a month for shared hosting. Go with one of the really well-established companies, a bit more expensive, but they've invested a lot in their customer service platform. They have people there around the clock. So that's what to look out for, what to think about when you're comparing hosting plans. Let's move on to the next section. What to expect. Okay, so you've signed up for your first hosting account. What can you expect to happen? Well, when you sign up, you will either register a domain name at the time you sign up with the hosting company itself, or you've already got a domain which you registered before with GoDaddy or any other domain registrar that you happen to have worked with. When you sign up for your hosting account, and this step is important because there are going to be some things you need to do to connect your domain to your hosting account. When you sign up, some web hosting companies have an automated provisioning process, and so you will literally get an email from them almost immediately after signing up with all of the details about how to access your hosting account. Other web hosting companies have a more manual process where they'll manually set up your account for you. Sometimes they will even call you to confirm your account. I had this happen to me recently, and it was a couple of days before I could start using my hosting account with this new provider. So if you have registered your domain with your hosting company at the time that you set up a hosting account, then actually there is very little setup to do with the domain because they will do that all for you. And so as soon as you have access to your account, your domain will start resolving and you can install WordPress and start running your website. If, however, you've already set up or registered your domain with another provider, after your hosting account is provisioned, you're going to need to update the name server details with the domain registrar. These are the details that tell the internet where to find your domain name, which IP address. And so when you sign up, you're going to get an email that includes some name server information. It'll be something like ns1.bluehost.com or ns1.site5.com, something similar to that. And these are the details you need to take to your domain registrar and update the name server details. If you don't know how to do that, then just contact the domain registrar, give them the information provided by the hosting company, and they can do that for you. Keep in mind that DNS details can take up to 24 hours to propagate around the internet, so there may still be a little delay before your website starts to resolve on the new hosting account. But really, that's all you need to do. It's very, very simple. You're going to get an email from the hosting company. It's going to include all the details you need, including your name server information, if indeed you need to update that with your domain registrar. If not, then it's all going to be ready to go right out of the box. What we recommend. So we've talked about the different kinds of hosting. We've talked about how to compare different types of hosting plan and what to expect when you sign up. So what do we recommend particularly? Well, if you click the links below, you'll find out some specific recommendations we have for WordPress hosting. But if you want to look around wider, I totally recommend you do that too. Just keep in mind the things that you need to look out for when you're comparing different hosting plans, and really importantly, look for some third-party objective reviews of the different hosting companies. In fact, that's one thing I would add actually. If you don't find a lot of reviews for any given hosting company, then they probably don't have a very big track record and might be worth skipping over. Look for good quality reviews around the place and use that as one of your parameters for choosing a provider as well. So, do you have any questions? Is there something that we didn't cover? Is there a particular question you have that we didn't answer? Are there more advanced things that you would like to know about as it pertains to web hosting? If you do have questions, again, please hit us up in the comments below. We'd really, really like to hear from you. We're going to be developing some more tutorial videos in the coming weeks and months, and we'd love to have your input on that. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That really helps us get the word out. And until next time, happy WordPressing.